Welcome to a mini Smart Firefighting podcast series, recorded live at the Institute of Fire Engineers booth during the 2024 AFAC show, Down Under in Sydney, Australia. Throughout these conversations, we dive into critical issues like fire safety, emerging technologies, diversity in the fire service, and innovative solutions for emergency response. Enjoy these fascinating insights from leaders around the world on how we can build a safer and more resilient future. Dr. Greg Penney, the Assistant Commissioner at the Fire and Rescue New South Wales, shares his journey into wildfire engineering and discusses the critical role of training and sense-making in making decisions. He dives into moral injury in the fire service and reflects on the pride of giving back to the future generations of firefighters. Sitting alongside Dr. Greg Penney. What's up, Greg?
Hey, Kevin. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How is your day 2 of AFAC treating you?
It's always pretty hectic, but it's good to catch up with people and do the mingling, the hosting, the talking, doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, I've seen you, I got here Sunday, and I've seen you every day, and which is a great thing. I think there's usually good things happen when you hang out with Greg. But from Sunday, the firefighters versus cops rugby game.
Yeah, that was a pretty special event.
Dude, that was amazing. Why? I mean, and then the professionals played afterwards. The Roosters played. They lost, but watching the firefighters and the police go head to head was truly something special. How was that for you?
Look, there's always a lot of passion in it, and that's fantastic. I used to play league myself, never at that level, but watching the passion in between the teams and how they come together and how they leave everything on the field, and even when they're busted and they're bleeding, they just want to strap themselves back up and get out there.
And you're saying when your mates broke their nose in a few places.
Yeah, one of the guys ended up with 4 fractures in the end, but he had it reset, put his headgear back on, went out and played an absolute blinder. So that was, Jay from Glebe Station.
Wow. Hey, I'm sure he would say he would do it all over again. I don't know, but I would imagine. And then Monday, we were at the fire department downtown. Dr. Lori Moore was there and doing a little tour and learning about the bag and tag program. And then yesterday, we were out at the training academy.
Yeah, so the training academy out at Orchard Hills is a pretty cool one. It's the newest one in Australia. It's about 5 years old now. And it's just awesome to be able to explain to fire engineers what firefighting is about and get them to do it practically and really get them to understand the implications when they just suggest that a performance solution is for firefighters to drag an extra length of hose, what that actually entails, and also giving the firefighters an opportunity to discuss stuff with the fire engineers. It's a good day.
It was such a great environment to bring people together to talk about the challenges and opportunities and just the realities about the fire service and fire engineering in terms of why do you place a hydrant here? What does it mean to just add an extra link of hose? And, I think when you talk to the fire engineers after they put PPE on, after they put wet stuff on the red stuff, after they were handling 1-inch hose, I think they definitely left with a different perspective on what it means to actually be a firefighter.
They sure did. And it just provides such a good environment anyway. And because they can see how passionate the firefighters are as well, how seriously they take their job and how good they are at their job, it sort of highlights that it's not just a case of firefighters lift heavy things and don't ask too many questions when we run into burning buildings. It is actually a true profession that comes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've seemed to be maybe one of the busiest guys in New South Wales. I've just impressed with you running around and having a bunch on your plate. But I know just, with your the DR doctor title in your role, you've been deep into different aspects of research and different aspects of public safety research. I know you've got 2 focuses. We'll focus on the first one first with wildfire engineering, wildfire, bushfire response.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of your past history with it and then some of the research and, shed some light on that.
Sure. So it really came about during the Yarloop-Waroona fires in New South Wales. So at the time I was a station officer or crew leader, as it would be, and we got turned out to a particularly bad set of fires where it generated its own weather system. We did a crew changeover out in the field, a hot changeover, and very quickly things went really bad. So from what the outset looked like really quite calm conditions and we thought it was going to be immediate blow up, turned into cyclonic conditions. It turned dark really quickly. The flame intensity and the heights through the pine plantations were like nothing else. We got immersed in flame a couple of times and we thought there was no way we were coming out. It was really one of the first times that I thought not just I was going to die, but also the crew that I was leading was going to die. Long story short, we managed to make it out of that after a couple of really harrowing experiences. And my firefighters were just unbelievable in terms of we didn't have water, the truck wasn't working properly, but they still risked their lives to ensure that people were out and safe, and then recommitting again and again through that day and that evening. And at the end of that, I just thought we could do this better. Like, we can do this better, and I've got to understand my enemy more. And so that led me down a path of a Masters of Fire Engineering, which is a very, I guess, different approach to what I thought I'd be first taking when I was a recruit, and really looking at how bushfires are represented in our models, how we calculate stuff, how we look at firefighter tenability, how we do our strategies, how we do our tactics, how we protect crews from in terms of water spray systems, all these type of things, really looking at it to go, I really want to understand this more. Unfortunately, that didn't lead me to the answers that I was looking for. It just opened up more questions. I got a few answers, did the PhD in that side, and that sort of extended over into the bushfire or wildfire engineering at the urban interface, building code design, performance-based solutions, which is a huge gap internationally at the moment.
Well, I was impressed yesterday. It does feel like it was almost a week ago when we were at the training academy. It was just yesterday morning. But the simulations in the simulation room, we're putting on the 3D glasses and sort of seeing this different bird's eye view, first person view, third person view of a wildfire going at different speeds, and the idea of how to sort of train on an unpredictable experience. And then from that, someone said of like, if you can see it, you can, if you train on it once, you can do it better. There's maybe some quote that maybe you could say more eloquently than me, but tell me about that simulation model and sort of what's the point of it?
Sure. Well, anytime when we're training firefighters to stay safe, where you say, now just imagine we've lost it, which basically means that if I tell you, imagine a fire in this room, you're thinking a different fire to how I'm thinking it. So in terms of, we're not looking at the same picture, we're not being immersed in it. So the training suffers, everything suffers. With large wildfires, it's very, very hard to do that in a training environment, because you can't just go out and light up 100 hectares and let it go. It's too dangerous. It gets out of control. So by working with the University of New South Wales and doing this immersive simulation technology and IFE project, what that's going to allow us to do is not just deal with wildfires, but wildfires at the urban interface, and over the coming years progress that into building fires, hazardous materials jobs, collapses, explosions, all that side of things as well. But really immersing the rookies in that environment, much better than a PowerPoint, much better than a textbook or anything like that. They can see it, and because of the AI generation, because of the power of the simulations, it is realistic. They can pick out the key points. We can do it in a safe environment. And then as they progress, we can also check out their decision-making and how well they'd apply their strategies to it.
Well, so I'm glad you said the word decision-making, because I know that's something that you spend a lot of time on, and we were talking about at dinner last night, just the idea about how we go about decision-making. And a lot of it actually stems to, well, how we've been trained, what have we experienced before in different types of classroom settings, and then also real-world settings. And I know there's a lot of science behind proper training leads to better outcomes. But yeah, before we dive into all things decision-making, tell me about the importance of training to help ensure and create the best decision-making.
So look, this is a really key one, because firefighters, cops, paramedics, any military, anyone who works in really dynamic environments is really going to be faced with bad outcome scenarios, and ones where there might not be a good outcome at all. So they've got to be able to make sense of the information, interpret it really quickly, apply the correct decision style of process, whether it's intuitive or analytical or a blend, and then being able to execute it as well. And one of the things that I got really frustrated with in my career is seeing good people that were faced in really difficult situations make the best call that they possibly could, but because they couldn't explain how they were making their decisions, because we didn't teach them how to do that, then they would actually face criticism. And especially when they went on stands in terms of coronial investigations and things like that, I saw the damage that it did to really, really good people who did a really good job at the time that they were making the calls. So that was sort of another passion project that sort of took me down the lines of, we need to teach people not just how to make decisions, but how to explain their decisions, especially in a very technical field, firefighting, very dangerous field. And if you're not a firefighter, you don't get firefighting. It's so hard. We go back to now, just imagine you're in a life or death situation. Unless you've been there, you can't imagine it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when the fight or flight environment, and you just think about the innate human senses of just fight or flight of trying to stay alive, and how you go, your focus and everything you're looking at gets real narrow, real quick. And that's where why training is so important, but also you talked about of not just how we make the decision, but why, and then being able to explain the rationale. But I want to get to the rationale part, but the why, and you mentioned the term sense making. What is sense making in your eyes, and how does it relate to the fire service decision making?
Yeah. So sense making is how we, I guess, put the pieces of the puzzle together to form a picture. And we'll each be looking at the picture a slightly different way, even with the same pieces in front of us. And what it allows us to do with good sense making, it allows us to not just look at the obvious, but to look for other reasons for behind an event occurring. So this is so with the paramedics, you're not just looking at a single potential cause of something, you're looking at other diseases that may cause the same impacts. If someone's going into shock, what could possibly cause it? Is it traumatic? Is it medical? So you'll start looking at the information, put together a piece of a puzzle, but then also looking at other bits. And what that allows you to do then is not just look at the current situation, understand it, but then also start to plan ahead and really do that, not just at a firefighter level, but also at a high level incident command as well. So I've applied this when I've been responsible for commanding cyclone response, which is massive impact across Western Australia. These type of events, it goes right from the grassroots all the way up.
Well, I mentioned it before the pod, but there is a book by Chris and Masberg called Sense Making. Need to get you one of them. I'd get you a copy. I'd also would love to. I have a loose relationship with him. I've worked with him on a few things, but I think he'd be very keen to dive into a bit more of the work that you're doing from a fire service perspective. But I also remember last night we were talking to the other gentleman who has kind of longer hair, maybe from...
Yeah, so Associate Professor Dr. Chris Bierman, I work with him, or say work. All this stuff I do as a nerd, like all the research stuff is nerd in my own time because for whatever reason...
Hey, the podcast's for the nerds,
Excellent.
So you're in good company.
So Chris and I are part of a group through Natural Hazards Research Australia. They put a call out for international teams to look at decision-making across Australian emergency services and management. And I was really fortunate enough to be part of the successful team with Chris, and he's doing huge amounts of work with another guy called Dr. Peter Hayes. And so between the three of us and another guy, Jim McLennan, who's an absolute legend in the space and has been for 20, 30 years in this space, and also working with overseas with Phil Butler and Rona Flynn as well from the UK. We're all working together, but Chris in particular in Australia has been a huge influence in how we do things here.
Well, then I know also last night we brought up the individual Dr. Sabrina Cohen, who wrote Heat of the Moment, which is all about firefighter decision-making. Is she tied in with some of your research? And I know she's making her way here, hopefully, if her flight's not canceled.
That's it. So, look, I've cited Sabrina countless times in terms of my research and followed her very, very closely. And a lot of the work we do parallels quite closely and complements each other in a way that is just different enough to provide a slightly different perspective on the same topic and without disagreeing with each other as well. And in terms of, I'm really excited to talk to Sabrina when she comes over here. She brings a huge wealth of knowledge and just so much that we'll be able to talk about and geek out on when she is actually here.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. And yeah, I mean, I had the chance to meet with her at the World Fire Congress, and I mean, her story is absolutely remarkable in terms of what she's gone through and ultimately just what she's doing now to impact the global fire service, and diving into this whole decision-making and how we can continue to allow first responders to make the best decisions, whether it's, before, during, and after their shift. And this ties into the overall fire service livelihood. So I guess kind of curious, and now it's September 2024. What's next for you? I mean, it seems like, not that you're always working and chasing the next thing, but I know you're very motivated and driven and working on a lot. Like, what's on the horizon for you, and what are you focused on?
I guess on the research space and out of the interest space, so just had an article published this morning on the results of a big study that we did on what makes good decisions and bad decisions, how people actually interpret those. I don't want my stuff to sit on a shelf. So I want this to actually make a difference with people. So I've got some good stuff lined up with the Australian Institute of Police Management. There's Fire and Rescue New South Wales, which we're rolling out new decision processes and training across all ranks there, which is really cool over the coming months. Got a big study on moral injury on Australian fire and emergency services, which is really looking at the organisational and leadership factors. It won't necessarily be the traumatic job that we go to, but people get really damaged by leadership decisions or communication, that sort of thing. So improving the safety, improving the profession of firefighting is really where I want to take the stuff.
So the article you wrote today, Good and Bad Decisions, what is the difference between the good and the bad decision?
So there's a couple of really key points. So one of the things that came out of the study is that depending on how the decision is judged is a key thing. So we can base it just on an outcome. Is an outcome good or bad? We can look at the decision process itself. So was it a suitable process followed? Which is probably the one which I'm really keen on, because in events where Thompson's trolley problem, things like that, where there's a split in the tracks, you can make a train go left or right, either take out one person or take out three people. There's no good outcome from that. So the outcomes are always going to be bad, but looking at the decision there. The other thing is that what makes a good decision will be different for every single person, and there'll be some elements that are aligned and some elements that are completely different to all. And in terms, if we're talking about a good decision, that's not black or white. There's scales or sort of amounts of goodness, if you want to take it. The other thing is a good decision's not a reflection, like the opposite of a bad decision. People judge it really differently. So what the study's really called out is we're not teaching people how to make decisions. And that's a key problem that I want to fix.
How are you going to fix it?
Fortunately, in my position within Fire and Rescue New South Wales, so as the Assistant Commissioner Education and Training, that's one of the areas where I've got a lot of influence, which is fantastic. In terms of the international fields, one of the key things that I try and do is, with all my journal articles, making them open access. So firefighters that aren't affiliated with universities and don't have access to the journals will still be able to download this stuff. And in terms of doing talks, in terms of, especially for the Institution of Fire Engineers, getting the word out and putting my time back into the firefighting emergency services community, regardless of whether in Australia or in the US, and making those linkages so that we can educate the next generations. That's how it is. So
great, that's good stuff. And then one of the last two things I want to cover is you are sort of wearing both sides of the hat, from being a firefighter, a fire engineer, received, got a doctorate. So you're wearing a couple, but particularly with the fire engineer and firefighter hat. And it kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast of yesterday, of allowing fire engineers to put on PPE, put wet stuff on the red stuff. This has led to us being here today at the Institute of Fire Engineers booth where we're podcasting, and I'm here, and it's been so great learning about IFE. The IFE is this organization that I continue to be impressed with the members, and you seen the dinner last night. But in your eyes, what is IFE, and why is IFE an important institution within the scope of the fire service?
Yeah, well, the catchphrase is we're the nexus between fire engineering and firefighting. What that really means is that we try and provide that interface for the blended learning. It's about education. It's about that shared communication between both fire engineers and firefighters. And the benefit for us is, whilst we're an industry body, we're not aligned, or we're doing it without that, I guess, the conflicts of interest that come into it. And that sort of provides a really strong capability to tap into different industries, to get that networking, to get that education going. And through the IFE roadshows that we put on in Australia each year, where we'll bring over international speakers and experts in both domains and actually get people sharing that information, and firefighters, fire engineers working together, that's making it safer for everyone.
Yeah, I heard the tour day Frank Lieb went over well.
It went really well. Yeah.
What was he covering, and what was that about?
So Frank's talk was all about firefighter safety and leadership. And one thing that stands out in particular is his phrase was, be the salt, because slugs hate salt. And on the fire service, the moment he said that, everyone just knows what a slug is. They're the lazy person that doesn't want to get involved, turns up to work, just turns on TV, doesn't drill, doesn't prepare. And when there's a really significant job happens, they have to be carried. Slugs hate salt. So being that salt, being the one that is passionate, that actually cares about the job, that will go and do things not to make it better for themselves, but for the next generation. That's what came out of Frank's talk. So that was really cool.
Damn. I was about to ask you for a mic drop moment, but that was it right there. Well, I'm glad to hear. And then I know, obviously having Dr. Lori Moore Merrill here has been a really big push, and just kind of really elevates the game of everyone. But what other kind of road shows or kind of sort of community education do you see in the near future for IFE?
Look, with the IFE, there'll be the ability to tap into all the fire services and what's being done in the community space there. So, for example, with Fire and Rescue New South Wales, we're doing this amazing partnership with the University of New South Wales. And one of the professors there, Professor Dennis Del Favreau, and his team already invested over $35 million into this immersive simulation technology, and working with them with these really high fidelity immersive environments so that we can show the community what the impacts are going to be ahead of time. Because when we say, oh, look, it's going to be a bad fire day, we're going back to now, just imagine it's a bad fire day. So really immersing the community in these environments across different platforms, which is stuff which isn't just Australian-based, but we're already starting to model stuff in the US. It's application in a whole range of, we're talking to the French about getting involved as well. That ability to have global impact on fire safety is just awesome.
Yeah. Well, so Greg, if you could, and sort of a final, if there's any sort of quote that you love to live by, or any sort of words of wisdom, whether it's personal or fire service related, anything that you could leave us with here today.
Look, at the end of 23, 24 years across being a paramedic and a firefighter, being part of something bigger than you are, giving something back to the next generation will always make you proud, will always make you feel better about yourself. But at the end of the day, look, firefighting is the best job there is. I still love riding the trucks. If you ever get the opportunity, be a firefighter. I'm excited to get on the rigs tomorrow with your fellow firefighters. And Greg, you are epitome of what is a firefighter, and you're living true to the statement you just said. You're doing it. So keep up the good work, and look forward to continue to collaborate with you. Thanks for listening to this episode recorded alongside the Institute of Fire Engineers during the AFAC show. If you found value in the conversation or learned something new, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out, share your thoughts, and let's keep the discussion going on how we can shape the future of smart firefighting.